I used to rule the world. Seas would rise when I gave the word. Now in the morning I sleep alone. Sweep the streets I used to own. I used to roll the dice, feel the fear in my enemy's eyes, listen as the crowd would sing. Now the old king is dead, long live the king. 1 minute I held the key, next the wall will close on me, and I discovered that my castle stand upon pillars of salt, pillars of sand. I hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Be my mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in the foreign field. For some reason I can't explain, once you go there was never an honest word, and that was when I ruled the world.
Show. Thank you very much, my man Jazz, and welcome to Dr. Terrence. Today, we're not talking about who is going to rule the world, but we are certainly going to be putting the focus on who the next government might just be. Now, in 2019, Parliament unanimously voted have Undi 18, which is, of course, translated to the 18-year-old vote, which basically means that everybody above the age of 18 is automatically registered as a voter. That means just about everybody watching the show. So, what does it translate into at the ballot box? Now, James Chai, who is, of course, a very famous columnist, he is a research fellow, a visiting research fellow with the ICS Yusuf Isha Institute, and he's opined that the youth vote will count more in the rural areas. So the rural youth vote will matter more than that of the urban areas. That's one opinion. There are also opinions that says, of course, the electorate being 18 will be a lot different from the electorate in their 40s. It's simple mathematics, really, when you look at how much digital content they consume and how much they're influenced by said content. So, what are the issues that matter to the young people of today? We're going to find out in this conversation that I have with two great guests on the show, so don't go anywhere. Stay right where you are. Dr. Terrence will bring the focus on the young electorate coming in to the next general election. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Dr. Terrence, and if you just joined us, you are in for a treat. We're going to be putting the focus on the next general election and highlighting the young vote. 18 years old, that's how young our electorate will be, and this will be something quite special because it's the very first time that a lot of these young people will come out and vote. So if you are old enough to take responsibility for your actions and be punished under the law as an adult, you're old enough to vote. So that was the logic going into this whole conversation. Now, we're faced with the reality that we have a very young electorate that probably votes along different lines. They're not sure of how they'll fall on different topics because maybe they don't have the lived experience to actually make relevant choices. So that's one criticism of the young electorate, but however, they make up for it by digesting and consuming tons of digital content. So they have this ability to kind of circumvent that lived experience through the plethora of digital platforms out there and consume the relevant knowledge needed to make the right choices. So on that note, it's time to get down to the conversation and focus on the young voters. I have joining me first Dr. MALIKI RAPIEE, the Director of the International Youth Center.
Hello,
Welcome,
Terrence.
Dr. Maliki. How are you?
Yeah, fine, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank
Please
you for this opportunity.
grab a seat and let's get started.
Yeah.
So, at the offset of this whole young vote, there was some criticisms, but unanimously Parliament approved it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a non-issue. Moving forward, though, what do you think of James Shai's analysis that says that the rural young vote will be more critical than the urban youth vote? What do you think?
Yeah, first, thank you for this opportunity. I'm not young anymore, but maybe because of my previous involvement with Malaysian Youth Council, so maybe I have some experience in this. So for sure, our young people, young voters in rural area and the urban area will give different outcomes. Yeah, because the exposure, yeah, in urban area they got a lot of exposure, mixed around. They got a lot of ideas, rather than the people in the rural area. Maybe they only have one-sided and one focus, because the channel of information come from one sources. So maybe we have some different outcome and different ideas and decision. The young people will vote which parties or which issues that they will involve. So here I can see that maybe in some place in Sabah and Sarawak, like in the remote area, maybe we will see the different outcome. But at the same time, you cannot put aside about the social media.
That's right.
Yeah, because they also have this opportunity to see what happened outside. Don't say that they stay in the remote area, they know nothing. You cannot see like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So social media is a great segue into the next part of this conversation, because social media is blowing up right now. There are a lot of instances that happen.
A lot of information. We don't know which one is right, which one is wrong.
But what we can tell is some of the videos that are circulating on social media certainly have made people look at the young voters as well as young leaders in a different light. Now, they're very capable young leaders out there. I do not deny that. But recently there was a viral video about one particular leader who kind of used language that's not suited for public consumption, I guess. It's in the law somewhere, I'm sure, about using profanities on public broadcast. So that being said, this is, I guess, reflective of how young people speak, do you think?
Yeah, I still believe that Malaysian people have a very good value on some action and some thinking. So either maybe you are very young, you are very ideal, you are very vocal about some issues, but you need to take care of what approach and how you use your words. Because in Malaysia, they are very sensitive. Yeah, even though last time during Hari Raya, when the animation of Upin Ipin, it's a very simple one, but people still concerned how they put the dialogue about orphanage like that. So it's about animation. But here, when the young leaders try to get support from the voters, but using the harsh words, that's not right. People will remember this happened, and now under the social media technology, what you did last time still remember maybe after one election to another election. So you need to remember that. So please take care of your words.
So on the one side, we have very young leaders who are using social media all the time. They're reaching out to the voters. They might have instances like what we spoke about. And on the other hand, we have leaders who are in their 80s and 90s who are still contesting for the election. And they're probably completely oblivious of social media. They're not using it as actively as their younger counterparts. Do you think that is well received? I mean, a leader who's in his 80s and has been there forever is trying to contest again for a seat, and he's not really using the medium of the day to reach out to his electorate.
Yeah, it depends on this situation. I cannot say that the leaders, maybe the age is 80 to 90s, not relevant anymore. But in this context of young people, we need to have some changes because sure, this kind of leaders not anymore in the framework of young voters.
Right.
But in the reality, what people want is how deep and how far you can deliver your service to the people. If you use all social media, you can show your talent over there. But when it goes to service to the people, you need to know where is the people, what is their needs, and how you can reach them. So it depends on the situation. Maybe some place, some area in Sabah and Sarawak, this kind of leaders still relevant because you need to understand the structure of the community. Yeah, they have tribes over there. Yeah, these leaders, although they are old, but still have some respect and confidence from the people. So we need to respect them.
Right, so there are leaders that are entrenched in that social makeup, and therefore it is sort of tradition to maybe have them as candidates. So this is interesting. A very different makeup from Semenanjung, where we don't have so much of that tribal.
Because in Semenanjung, the accessibility is different. And then people can compare. Young people can go to get the information out there without any bottleneck. But over there in Sabah, in Sarawak, I think because I also involved some program over there in some rumah panjang. The leaders that come from that kind of community and tribes, they have their own character that get respected from the people over there. So we cannot compare apple to apple like that.
Right.
We need to understand that, okay, this is the leaders that got all the support and confidence from the community, so we need to respect them.
So that is one aspect of it. When we look at how our candidates are selected here, it's all up to the party. So the party basically selects the candidates that they want to field in any general election. And also the political alliance. So recently we heard how Pakatan Harapan has fell out of confidence with Parti Socialist. They distanced themselves from PSM. PSM is going to maybe run on its own. And however, they've accepted Muda into their ranks and they have given them a few seats. So this is interesting as seeing how most of the component parties within all our political parties now have youth wings of their own. But nevertheless, the choice of candidates that they feel, should it reflect the younger electorate? How should political parties change their strategy for this coming election?
I believe maybe for the next election, after this 15th election, maybe we have another scenario. But right now for PRU general election 15, the scenario is still conservative. We still need party because what? Party is the place that they will screen everything, because in the country like Malaysia, a lot of requests, a lot of needs, and a lot of idea come from a lot of people, individual. So the party is the place, the platform that they will discuss what is the direction for their ideology. All parties have a youth wing. Normally, youth wing is more vocal. Will force to the government want this. But the party is a consensus platform. Everybody will say, okay, maybe it's important, but we need to focus on this first. So for me, it's very positive. Even though you have one individual very good, have talent, you need to go to the process first, because idealism is different with reality. If you cannot access your own party or your own community, how come you want to go to the public and say,
Right.
to say something, because
Right.
this is not one man show activity that you want to do this and you can do this. So you need to have consensus and to create the hegemony among the groups. Yeah.
That's a very good point. So we're going to take a short break on this note, and when we come back, we'll have our next guest join us, and then we'll really get started with the conversation. We're just getting warmed up. Don't go anywhere. Talk to Terrence. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the show. Thank you for staying with us on Talk to Terrence. We're looking at the very young electorate as we approach our next general election. We're only a week away from going to the polls. So far, we've been looking at the young vote from many angles, including how political parties need to change their messaging so they attract this new group of voters. But to complete our conversation, we're going to bring back someone that was on the show before, NIVAS RAGAVAN. He is the president of the Kuala Lumpur and Selangor Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Welcome back, NIVAS.
Hi, how are you guys?
Thank you for coming back on the show. So with Dr. Maliki, we were talking about many angles. We already started a little bit on how political parties need to change their messaging, how young leaders sometimes don't use the right words when they address the general public, and also about how it is different for voters in the rural areas as compared to the urban voters. But from your perspective, having looked at the young group of leaders we have that are running, what do you think? Is their ideology different from what we already have?
Well, thank you, Terrence. Well, I think with the number of young nominees, young leaders that is being nominated for this GE15, I think all the political parties have understood that there is a need for them to tap the youth voters, which is forming approximately about 50% of the electoral this time, thanks to Undi 18 and also the automatic registration of voters. Well, we see in the previous by-elections, like UMNO in Melaka and Johor, they win because of young leaders and young nominees there, you see. So basically, I feel that this is a right time for them to actually put in the young leaders to represent the parties and to be capturing the voters, because they are the right ones and the targeted ones that they can capture, you see. And voters today, the young voters especially, the Undi 18 voters, between the age of 18 and 20, there are about 1.4 million. So that actually forms at least 10 to 15% of the electorals that is going to take voting this election, which is going to be approximately 21 million. Of 80%, it comes to approximately 16 to 17 million. So we're looking at 10% that is going to be deciding on the marginal seats. So this is very important for the parties. They would have done some analysis, some risk assessment, and with the current political turmoil, the one with the best leaders, not the oldest or the youngest, but the best leaders that can capture. So the current trend is the young guys. They have creative ideas, innovative ideas of capturing the voters through social media. So that's the right way. So the ideology of putting the young voters, I think their mindset is to tap the young voters. Yeah.
But what about national messaging, right? Because sometimes young leaders, especially from parties like PSM, who's no longer part of PH, but on their own, their messaging seems to be rather radical. I mean, it is socialist messaging. It's a lot of leftism that's coming from the West. So their ideals don't really align with our Rukun Negara to a certain extent.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, they're young, they have their set of ideals and the reasons for defending it. Is it something that can resonate with the...
Well, that's the best part of this country, where we are democratically allowed to actually form political parties with right ideologies, as long as it doesn't affect the constitution of the country and causes chaos. So the socialist movement or Party Socialist Malaysia, they are not famous or popular among voters because of their ideology nature. I think instead of using young voters, they should actually shift their ideology to suit the current need of the political situation in the country, because time has changed, but their struggle remain the same. So they should change, because disruption happens even in political situation currently, you see. So as the political situation changes, the way their approach and ideology should change, but the principle should remain the same. The way they bring the message to the people should be the right way. If they portray the real hardcore socialist way of running it like the lefties and not, as you mentioned, then the Malaysians feel that it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
And that's why Pakatan Harapan has rejected PSM to be part of the coalition, because that may derail their ideology.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Dr. Maliki. We have candidates in their 80s and 90s. These are candidates who have won many elections, even before I was born. So they've already been in power. But they're back again and again and again. Their messaging perhaps is the same. Their method of reaching out to their constituents perhaps is also the same. What do you think of these very senior candidates there in the 80s?
Well, this is the election. The election means the GE15 is going to be a totally a different situation here, because you have 6 million increase in voters, and you have 50%, nearly 50% of young voters, and you have a different set of ball game now. Instead of 2 coalition system, now you have up to 4 coalition system.
Right.
So being as old as 80, 90 or 70, 80, that actually it's mind-boggling, because they still feel they are relevant to the current situation. But in actual fact, the youth felt that they are already obsolete in the political condition, because on their way of mindset, their ideology, their approach. And I think the youth today want a different set of leadership today. So I feel that they may be in the advisory, mentoring or coaching role, like how Lee Kuan Yew, the former Prime Minister, played an important role as a mentor minister to then Goh Chok Tong, the Prime Minister then. And the country progressed pretty well. So I believe our senior politicians should play such an mentoring role to the respective political parties, rather than standing as a candidate and fighting for the seat, because it's an insult to the younger leaders. It's an insult, because in every party you have huge number of youth there, and when the party nominates an elderly person, it's definitely an insult to the capable, dynamic youth, vibrant youth that wants to shine out there to represent the people, advocate equal rights, equal political, economical, education, social rights for the people. So I feel this is not the right timing for them to come back. As I know, I think a lot of leaders now are coming back because they feel they can join the fray and capture the moment.
Well, this is very interesting, because there are some senior leaders who are not included.
Yeah.
They have been removed from the list of candidates for whatever reason. I mean, this is true in both Barisan Nasional as well as Pakatan Harapan. Maybe not so much for the other coalition, because they seem to maintain their leaders. However, for the two main political frays, they seem to have shed some of their older leaders in view of younger leadership.
Yeah.
But when it comes to messaging, these young leaders, when they champion their causes, they always put forward issues which affect the young people, such as housing, such as university tuition fees, and they also focus on issues like jobs. So these issues are very youth-centric.
Yeah.
But in doing so, are they neglecting the needs of the other groups of electorate?
Yeah. We need to understand and admit that young people in Malaysia, we got more than 50%. So we need to focus on them. That's why I come from the Ministry of Youth and Sports Malaysia. This is our understanding that we need to invest more to young people, and we need to give more accessibility to young people, space, but no one should left behind. So we cannot deny other group of community their rights, their needs. But for me, this is a time to us to give more focus on young people, because it's not because of the percent of the group here, the portion is very big, but also they are very the impact of the COVID-19. Yeah, they are the group that losing jobs, everything. So we need to invest on them and try to help them. So this GE15 is the place that young people will analyze you and evaluate you. So any parties, you cannot show your concern on young people, you will left out. So very important to give them what is the direction and what is our promise to them. How to deliver to young people to bring this country to one focus, like jobs, new jobs, opportunity, how to lessen their burden, how to make sure they can get house scheme that can attract themselves and give hopes to them. It's very important.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to look at the age-old issue of race, education, and how the young leaders are tackling these issues. So don't go anywhere. Stay right where you are. Talk to Terrence. We'll be right back after these messages. Jazz and the music, welcoming you back to Talk to Terrence as we explore the young vote, just 7 days away from our next general election. So joining me in conversation, we have, of course, two guests, NIVAS RAGAVAN, whom you know from the previous show, and we've also got Dr. MOHAMED MALIKI joining us in conversation. So, guys, let's explore some of the new ideas around race that have been put forward by the young leaders. In our previous show, NIVAS, we talked a bit about this, and there was kind of a consensus that this race-based political party system is here to stay. But have you heard any new ideas from leaders on the ground?
Well, Terrence, I think that is what's happening. All our political leaders see the race as a trump card to gauge a lot of voters, but times have changed. Our political leaders are now advocating need-based policies. Need-based affirmative policies rather than race-based, because today every race problem is a Malaysian problem. It's not an individual race problem. For example, if the Indians have a problem, it should be the national problem. It's not the community's problem. So the government that is coming soon should actually tackle every issues as the need-based affirmative action plans. That's how it should be drafted and implemented hereafter, so that everybody in Malaysia, regardless of race, religion, are equal, and on merits they are actually being in this country. So the need-based policies shall prevail hereafter. So we see some leaders these days advocating during the campaigning more towards need-based. So times have changed, the approach has changed, the strategy also has changed. I hope that it continues during the implementation of the policies. It's not just like how previously during the elections they said this is the manifesto, and after the coming into the government they said it is not a Bible. So we felt, the people, the voters felt cheated. So hereafter, when they affirm something on the ground that we will protect, safeguard the interests of every Malaysian, regardless of race, religion, and what's so not, I think the leaders should fulfill the promise. We have a problem here in the country today because we have lost faith in the political parties, the political leaders, because when they say one, they do the next one. You know, so this time of all elections is the mother of all election, and it decides the fate of every political parties, every coalition, and every leaders, because the voters now know that their vote is a very powerful weapon to decide the fate of the country. So I think the Malaysians also affirm on the need-based policy.
When we look at this, I think we've talked about this many times. It is going to be a different type of election simply because that loss of confidence that Nivas talked about, we felt it in the last term.
Yeah.
In one term, we had 3 governments.
Yeah, 3 governments.
3 different prime ministers.
Uncertainty.
A lot of uncertainty and the ups and downs of going through that process, the jumping of ship of certain politicians, and then the maneuvering and politicking within parliament. It was very lethargic for the people because we have had to deal with the pandemic, and on top of that, all this political uncertainty. So this election, as Nivas rightly pointed out, I also echo the same sentiment. It's going to be so important because the people will speak, and I hope the leaders will hear. But around racial issues, chief on my mind is education.
Yeah.
I think you echo my sentiment there.
Yeah.
I mean, it has been something that we constantly grapple with. I believe that it's easier to change the tertiary portion than it is to change the primary schools. Because if you're going to go back to the ground and revamp the 5 streams that we have national schools, we have national type schools, Chinese, national type schools, and Tamil. Private schools, and then religious schools. If you're going to revamp all 5 and bring it back into one stream, it's going to take a lot of time. But if we could revamp the tertiary system, the entry into tertiary education, I think that would be something that a lot of young people are looking forward to have more meritocracy and no more of the racial-based policies that we are used to. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm very consistent in my ideology and principle about education. During my time in Malaysian Youth Council, 2010, I started my statement that we need to have one system, one single system of education in Malaysia. Put aside about our needs, put aside about the uniqueness of the system. You bring all the experts, you bring all the parties, come to the discussion table and draw again what is the foundation, what is the future of our education. It's very important. Niva said about how Malaysian can sit together, put aside about race and focus as a Malaysian. All these elements should start in a school. This is the reality. But last time, some people said cannot because idealism is good, but the practicality is not. So my opinion is, if the political party is become a very big wall, stop all this idealism, let's do referendum. Let's 32 million people talk about what is their idealism, what is their needs and hope in education. This is very important because everybody want to stay together in this country. We don't have any place and space to stay except Malaysia.
Right.
So this is the place, but the reality, our children even want to share the canteen and even want to share the schools, they don't have any opportunity because of the system. So we need to have this kind of effort. I hope this government, please learn a lesson from the past. This is the time to us, bring everybody to the table. No need to provoke, no need to talk bad about others. This is for us, Malaysian. If you from Chinese school, private Chinese school, you have the uniqueness, bring it to the system. From religious school, you have a very good best practices, bring it to the system. And we have a very good system. So please, we cannot, enough is enough. Because how long we want to wait, I don't know. Education system need to revamp. Not change, but revamp.
Personally, I think it's also a drain on our finances to have 5 different streams. If we have one, we can focus our resources and create a better stream. Anyway, speaking about what you say about bringing everybody to the table, we don't have to look so far. Sarawak has Unifor,
Yeah.
which is an organization which is part of the government, which is a ministry under the government, that helps to address the needs of the non-Muslims. So it is a community-based approach that the government of Sarawak has taken. Do you think we need outreach programs like this moving forward, and should candidates put forward these ideals to address the larger community?
Well, I feel that outreach programs are important to tackle the intensity and also the complexity of the issues in the respective community. But then, as I said earlier, every issues addressed in the community is a national issue. You know, when you have a policy like how the national economic policy in 1970s that has been enacted and to implemented, it was actually to eradicate poverty regardless of races. And the other intention was to accelerate social restructuring to reduce or eliminate race identification through economic functions. So that has failed because it was not done across all the races. And in fact, even if it was to actually support the Malay community, it has failed too, because today the Malays are still on statistically the highest in poverty. Of course, we can't deny the fact the Indians are the worst, but this is a national issue. So if the previous governments have played a very responsible role in making sure that all the race are protected under the constitution and policies are implemented without any discrimination, any kind of exploitation, then I believe today in the country, statistically, your poverty line would have dropped. There won't be a huge disparity between the rich and poor. So I believe that the policies should be affirmative and need-based to ensure that every Malaysians, as I said earlier, protected and also safeguarded.
Do you see instances of racial and religious issues now suddenly coming to the surface during the general election, the campaigning process, and the build-up to it? Is this something that happens every year? I've asked this question before, but I just want to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think nowadays all parties and all candidates is more taking care of their approach when it's related to the religious and race, because they know it will harm them. Yeah, because
So they are better behaved.
better behave, because Malaysian people is very sensitive about that. Yeah, you can see during the pandemic. Yeah, those can show in the media social, TikTok or Instagram about good things about Malaysian. It will become very good
Viral.
acceptance and viral. So at the same time, those people using bad words will bashing by
Ratio.
people. Yeah. So this is a good element of social media that people will taken care of this. So I hope this will remain peace and harmony, because what we need in this country is peace and harmony. Nobody will harm you, because we stay in one country and we want the best for our children and our next generation.
Right. Have you seen any issues of race and religion coming to the surface during this?
Yeah, now you see a lot of these political champions. They go to the rural areas. They know these areas they can actually use race cards. They start the race sentiments, and but they have failed miserably, because even in rural areas today you have 3G and 4G, which they can access to all this Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok especially. So I think the political landscape have changed, and every leaders or candidate has been warned by the party to not use this race card anymore. You have to be more brilliant or more smart in your way of tapping the voters. I think instead of campaigning today, people should start educating the voters on the existing system. What is the government about? What is the parliaments about? What is the what is the law passing process all about? I think that is the approach they should take, and also they should stop running down or playing below the belt against each candidates, because the voters wants to know today, what can you do for me?
Right.
The young voters are having few things in their mind. They are looking at individuality, they're looking at the issues, they're looking at the parties, and they're looking at the leadership. So among all this, they are focused on the issues because today the rising cost of living is high, and the unstable political situation is bothering them. They are excited to vote, the young voters, but they're anxious. You know, the 18 to 20, they are about 1.4 million. They're definitely going to follow their parents. But then, if this 1.4 million, if they are graduates or undergraduates, they may start to think that they want someone that can actually advocate their rights. A simple thing on employment, on equal opportunities, and also on living costs. That's what they're looking at. So these are the basic fundamental thing that a Malaysian wants. Is it?
Thank you, gentlemen. I think that's very true, and I really hope that if any candidate were to flame up racial issues, they be punished by the voters in this coming general election, because we're tired of that. I mean, let's put all that behind us and let's move forward as Malaysians. So we're going to take our final break, and when we come back, we'll have some concluding remarks from both my guests. Stay with us. We're talking about the young vote in the upcoming general elections. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Talk to Terrence. It is the young vote that we're focusing on, and we're going to wrap up with the focus on integrity and accountability. Two themes that ran very high. The temperatures ran very high in the last general election. But in this one, I'm not sure, because both sides have individuals who have court cases that have yet to be decided. So your take on how important integrity and accountability will play a part to the young voters?
Yeah, for me, integrity and accountability is a must. It was a basic for young people and young voters to give their decision. Yeah, so all parties, all candidates need to put themselves and prepare for that, because we cannot put our country in the big risk, yeah, because this leader will make a decision for our country. So young people, young voters will focus on this. So accountability, integrity will become a very fundamental for them. So I hope they will give their votes for the betterment of the country. Yeah.
We see young leaders with court cases. This guy was just the minister for not even a full term. But of course, talking about Sadeh, he has a court case that he has to defend in February. So accountability and integrity across the board. It doesn't matter how old, how young, which party you come from. It does seem that there is a problem on both sides. How do you see this playing a part in the next general election, and what have you heard from young candidates?
Well, Terence, I would feel that I think we can't comment on the court cases afraid of contempt of court. But then what I see is, as my friend pointed out on accountability and integrity, it comes from good governance. Okay, so leaders, the voters are looking at leaders who can give a good governance, a competent, accountable, and transparent administration. And as all of us are well aware, the corruption has been rampant in this country, with a lot of unearthing of a lot of cases that's happening. And during this election now, you see the political opponents are actually revealing a lot of breaking scandals,
Accusing each other.
with evidences. So people are rattled, and Malaysians are confused. I think we have to choose the lesser evil than the right candidate. You know, so people are scrambling to find whether these leaders are good or this leader is good to be the prime minister. And I feel that we are in the situation that we have to find who is the lesser evil that will govern the country well and should be given the chance to prove his administration and his record, that he can implement the need-based policy that they are advocating at this point of time. So I think this election, as I said earlier, is the mother of all elections. if the young voters, that is about 10 million, at least 80 to 90% turns out, you have an impeccable results that will change the landscape of the country, and we will be moving the right direction, because the leaders or the leadership that is being chosen then will realize how important the voters, especially the young voters, that will impact their faith in the next 5 years. So this election, of course, a lot of skepticism and a lot of kind of research and surveys has found that the parliament may be hung, but I think the voters have to make a right decision. A strong message should be given when they vote for this party or this leader. They must send a message to the leader that we are voting you because we are watching you in the parliament. If you behave like a monkey in the parliament, the next time you will be kicked out. Because we put them there in the parliament to fight for our rights, not to fight for their individual selfish rights. So what you see for past 3 years, we are tired. We are hearing about political instability every single day, where we supposed to only decide on every 5 years. We are talking about it every day. So you see this election, even though it's a mother of all election, but we are less excited because we are tired and lethargic. And we have been talking about this since COVID, when the government fell and new government came, and that government fell, a new government came, and past 6 months, we were not sure when was the election, till the day the Prime Minister announced, you see. So things were uncertain. The businesses were affected badly because of all this, and on top of the COVID, and people were badly frustrated because of rising inflation, rising cost of living, business opportunity affected, the dollar depreciated badly, and then the import cost has risen, and employment has decreased. So employment opportunities have decreased very badly, and graduates are actually struggling. So the graduates consist of the young voters today. They have to make the right decision for the future of this country.
Well, those are all big factors, and I hope that young candidates can communicate them well to their electorate, because it is one thing to understand the issues at a certain level. For us to talk about this on TV, it's easy, I guess, but to make a young voter, first-time voter, understand how important it is to him, I think it will take some effective communication, which is what they're doing on TikTok and things of the sort. Nivas did bring up a very interesting point along the line of why we send someone to Parliament, why we vote them in. And we did talk about this off camera a little bit. The electorate, when they vote someone into Parliament, do they actually mean that they want this person to represent them in Parliament, or do they want this person to deliver things to the constituency? Which one is it?
We need to understand, when they go to the Parliament House, they didn't call by name. They called by the constitution, the place, like Sri Gading, my place, Bayan Baru, like that. So they need to understand how they behave. The character inside the Parliament House will affect the place. So both, they need to deliver to the people that give their votes, but at the same time, the function why they go to the Parliament House is to debate. And during the debate, in the context of Malaysia, we need to show our good attitude, because this is the example for Malaysia. Even though you have a very, very critical issues, you can show to the people how we settle these critical issues with the good manners.
Right.
So if you show your anger, you show your bad gesture, it will show your party is bad also. So now young people will see. And this happened, this is not 1968 or 1970 that happened inside the house, nobody will know. Now, live recorded
on RTM, TV1.
TV1. Right. So what you want to teach and you show to the next generation, not only Malaysian, but all over the world. So now when you talk about some sensitive issues about women, ladies, it will show that Malaysia is very, very, very bad.
Right.
to talk about gender, about
Yeah, we've
other
heard-
people's rights.
we've heard all those
This is
comments.
the time to us to change our
Okay.
attitude. Yeah.
I mean, I truly appreciate the debates coming out of the Singapore Parliament. So,
Yeah.
Well constructed, the ideas put forward with their examples and their case studies, and it's a very nice debate. And I think we saw shades of that in our youth parliament. So I'm excited to see some of these young youth parliamentarians actually stand for election and get voted in, and then carry on that tradition of quality debates in parliament. But to wrap up our conversation, because it is a young electorate and we have a lot of young leaders, do you think Malaysia will now progress in a more liberal, or will we stay rather conservative in our approach to governance? It is in our Rukun Negara that we need to be liberal, guided by the 5 principles. But do you believe that with this young electorate and a bunch of young leaders, we're now going to go closer to that objective? Nivas.
I think the liberalism is always what the Malaysians are looking forward for. We do not want to see our leaders becoming too racially inclined. We want to see them to be more people-oriented, people-centric, understand the needs of the people, and address the issues immediately. So, looking forward for this general election and thereafter, the youth especially are looking forward for a government that is stable, that can economically and also sustainably ensure that the Malaysians' future is actually regarded well, safely protected, and we implement policies that make sure the next generation lives in peace and harmony. That's what eventually all the Malaysians want. And as you mentioned well, we are guided by the 5 Rukun Negara tenets of the country, of the religion, of the constitution. And we should actually ensure that these 5 tenets is actually being observed by the parliamentarians, by the leaders of the country, to make sure that then they remember why they are there. Otherwise, their head will be bigger than what they are supposed to do. So I see that we have seen over the past 10, 15 years, 20 years, how our leaders behave in the parliaments, out there giving statements that is fencing racial sentiments, that is invoking the anger in one religion and one race. And I feel that we should move forward and I don't think we should see all this coming up hereafter. It should be all at the back of us as a memories or as a nightmare that has happened in our dreams.
Your thoughts?
Yeah.
Will we be more liberal, or will we stay rather conservative?
Yeah, it depends on the situation. Some element is very, very basic and foundation in this country. Like when you talk about needs, when you talk about certain rights for the people. So we need to respect and this is the pillars of harmony, peace and harmony. But when we talk about rights of the race, about education, we need to open up. Yeah, we give some rooms to discuss for the betterment. Yeah, not everything come to you imperfect. Yeah, so we need to discuss, agree to disagree with a very respective approach and method. So I think Parliament House is the place to us to discuss. So there are nothing what we call it. This is only for Malay. This is for Chinese, for Indian. Everything's about country. So open your mouth, open your heart, open your mind during the debate, and everything become good. Yeah.
Thank you very much to the both of you for joining me 7 days before we head to the polls. And thank you for staying with us in conversation as we explored the various tenets leading up to the next general election with the focus on the young vote. So on that note, thank you very much for watching. As you head out to the polls, vote responsibly and make sure you stay informed about your candidates and all the various manifestos that are being put forward so that you can make an informed decision. On that note, thank you for watching Talk to Terrence. Jazz, take us home.
I've been beating lonely people in crowded rooms. covering their old heartbreaks with new tattoos. It's about a smoke screens, cigarette, looking through low lights at silhouettes, but all I see is lonely people in crowded rooms. The city's gonna break my heart. The city's gonna love me and leave me alone. The city's gonna chase me stars. It's been a couple months since I felt like I'm home, and I'm getting closer to knowing where I belong. The city's gonna break my heart. She's always gonna break your heart. Oh. The city's gonna break my heart. The city's gonna love me and leave me alone. The city's got me chasing stars. It's been a couple months since I felt like I'm home, and I'm getting closer to knowing where I belong. The city's gonna break my heart.